my colleague Nicole Russell. Nicole is our marketing manager for the Italtile group. Nicole and I had a chat this morning about the webinars that we started in 2020. And we had a bit of a laugh this morning because the first webinar was really a stressful event for less than 50 people. With these days, we present one webinar every month, and our response is as many as 400 people per webinar. I would really like to welcome you to today's webinar. That's all about eco or green inspiration or green buildings. And we will have two presenters today. Before we start with the presentations, let's just make a few logistical arrangements. All the CPD certificates will be sent out directly to the attendees after the webinar. Nicole will send them out. Everybody is muted in the webinar to prevent disturbances during the webinar. If you have, we will allow questions and answer sessions after every presentation. If you have a question, will you please raise your hand or type your question in your chat box? Or you can even email Nicole directly so that she can direct the questions to the relevant people to assist you. We are going to start immediately with the webinar. Our first presenter will be Jenny Lombard. Now, Jenny Lombard is the technical manager at the Green Building Council of South Africa. The Green Building Council is an independent non-profit company that provides tools, training, and knowledge to encourage green building practices and to change the way that the world is built. A little bit of background from Jenny. She's been in the building industry for 25 years. Her career started as a space planner at Old Mutual in the facilities management department, and then she moved on to experience international interior design and facilities management practices before she returned to South Africa again. The sustainability bug bit her early in her career as it was part of her initial design and maintenance practices, but it really only began working very well for her when she joined the Green Building Council in 2014. Jenny manages the certification teams and uses the Green Building Council certification tools to direct clients on sustainability approaches to building and maintaining their buildings in a green way. Jenny, thank you very much for presenting this first portion of the webinar. I'm going to hand over to you. You can immediately start with your presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys. Yes, I'll be chatting to you about what the Green Building Council is about, just a short bit about what we're about in case you don't know who we are, and then just about green buildings in general and how you can think about green buildings in your world and in your environment, and how you might be able to consider green buildings in your designs and in more likely in your specifications, and how you can think about them in green trends going forward. So the two things I'm going to concentrate on are our ratings and what we do from a certifications perspective, and then go into some green buildings and what we kind of classify as green buildings. Let me just move this out the way. There we are. So the first, just see why I'm not moving. From a Green Building Council perspective, just to give you our main focus, we're a member organisation. We are a small organisation, but we pack a big punch. So we look at certifying buildings across the African continent, not just in South Africa. But our aim is to transform the built environment, and we're hoping to have two main thrusts. We're hoping that people and the planet, the environment, actually thrive by consciously making choices about the decisions we make when we're building the built environment. So those are our emphases within that environment. About the Green Building Council, we are a non-profit organization. We part of a much bigger organization, which is the World Green Building Council, and they've got green building councils all over Australia, India, UK, USA. There are about 50 world green building, different green building councils across the world. And from our organization, we've got about 400 members across Africa, but mostly within South Africa, that are part of our organization. And we are the current African Regional Chair network. And as I've mentioned, we support the other African green building councils to set up themselves to hopefully get their own sustainable journeys going. There are three emphases that we have within the Green Building Council of South Africa, and these are them. We hope to advocate and get more people on board for building and operating their buildings in a sustainable way. So we really want to advocate for the way of thinking slightly differently about how to maintain, operate, and design buildings. And then we hope to educate. So if there's a new way of doing things, we often link it with an education course. And then the third thing is certify. And that's where you get your building rated against some tools which we've developed. And so those are our three main focuses. We go across all ranges of enterprises. We've got government, we've got REITs, we've got the residential market. So we cover most areas within the economy. This slide just indicates how many, for example, how many what we call certifications we've got. As a Green Building Council, we started in 2007, and our first certification was in 2009. For those first 2 years, we were making the first rating tool, and that first building was gathering all the information in order for us to actually rate that first building. But you can see exponentially, there's been quite a considerable increase in certifications. And in fact, we've just reached a very big milestone, which we're very proud of. And you'll hear quite soon in media releases what that milestone is. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what it is. But you'll see the last two bars are 2023. And then the last bar is our target for this year. It is lower than the third last bar, which is 2022. But that's only because, unfortunately, of the economy at the moment and where people are sitting as far as committing to getting certifications. But we do anticipate that's a very low target that we set ourselves for this year. Within the next week, my team will be getting out another 45 certifications. So that bar will jump quite considerably, and we will almost reach this year's targets just within the next week of getting out results, which is very exciting. Just to give you a bit of an understanding of our rating tools and what type of buildings and things we do rate, we've got 4 different types of rating tools and what they're called. We've got the Green Star, which is kind of our almost like more elite suite of rating tools, and that's broken up into new buildings. We've got interior fit outs, we've got precincts or a neighborhood tool, which is for an entire big section, and then we've got existing buildings in Green Star, and then we've got also a section that just measures energy and water. That's just for offices at the moment. And then we've got a net zero rating tool, which looks at 4 different categories. It looks at water, it looks at carbon, looks at ecology, and it looks at waste. And you can do any of those or one of those. And then we've got an edge rating tool, which we are in partnership with the IFC, with the World Development Bank, and that that started out just as residential, but that has now expanded into almost all building types, and looks at embodied carbon, materials, and water usage. So there's quite a range of tools, and different tools fit different settings. This just gives you an idea of what they some of the projects and what they look like. You'll see the Green Star logo, the Energy and Water Performance logo up in the right-hand corner, the net zero ones, carbon, water, waste, ecology, and this is the edge one at the bottom. So I'm going to look at a little more closely at the Green Star categories, and specifically at the interiors tool in a little more detail. And what I'm going to concentrate on a little bit more is these are all Green Star credits that are always in the Green Star tool, whether it's interiors, whether it's existing building performance, or whether it's new build. They always have these 8 categories. But obviously, if it is interiors, it is weighted more and has more points. For example, you'll see here in materials, it has more points that are weighted 30 points towards the interiors tool has a heavier weighting in materials, whereas the new build tool might have a weighting somewhere else. It might have a bigger weighting in water or in transport. For example, the existing building performance tool has a very high weighting in management, because you are expected to manage and operate your building exceptionally well, and it's got a lower score for what actual materials you put in your building, because you aren't expected to put too much into your building. At that point, you are expected to operate it at a high level. What I'm going to concentrate on a little bit more links back to what I said earlier as far as what the Green Building Council's aim was, and that is to link our ratings and our buildings to how they work for both the people and the planet and the environment, and you can kind of see that very well in this interiors tool and how the points are allocated. So, for example, what I'm going to go into in a little more detail is this indoor environment quality, which is for 23 points. I'm going to look at energy, I'm going to look at water, and I'm going to look at materials. And I'm going to see what we call the credits with inside these categories and how they affect the choices we make for what we consider to be a green building. So these are the type of questions that we'll ask for an interiors fit out. These are the type of questions we suggest that somebody considers when they're considering both the people and the environment that they're creating the space for. So one of the big questions is obviously we want to make sure that the people that we're designing the space for are going to experience the space very well. And a big trend that we see coming out in a lot of rating tools and in a lot of things since COVID as well, is that the spaces and the buildings that we're designing for are supporting the people's health and well-being. So this purple dot is something that interior spaces and buildings as a whole are being questioned on a lot. So are the spaces actually supporting people's well-being and health? And that comes down to choices as far as finishes, as far as aircon, as far as cleaning products, all sorts of things. And does it improve health, but still give comfort? And then the environmental aspect comes in as well. You don't want to give everything and not have an environment that is conducive. You don't want to strip the environment of all its resources in order to have a building but nothing outside. So then the counter side is, where does the product that you're specifying for this building, whether it's the bricks or whether it's the carpet or whether it's the cleaning product, where does this come from? Is it harmful? What are the components that go into it, and is it durable? All of those type of things start playing a part and start becoming questions as far as the longevity of the interiors, as far as the environmental aspects that it could play, as well as playing up if it's a longer aspect to the interior space. For example, if you are going to use a more environmentally intense material, does it make sense to use that as a component that will be part of the building's overall structure versus something that you will only have in the building, maybe a carpet that will only be in the building for 3 years. So there are always these considerations that you play around with. So I'm going to use this picture again right at the end to see if we've answered some of these questions. The first category that I'm going to look at within our rating tool in interiors is called indoor environment quality, and that one specifically looks at checking that the people relate to the space that you are providing. So it's 23 points in total, and it makes up 23 points of 100 points. So it's quite a considerable amount of points within our interiors rating tool. And then these are the credits within the category: indoor air, thermal comfort, lighting comfort, visual comfort, acoustic quality, exposure to air pollutants. Now, those are things like volatile organic compounds. Is there just fresh air supply? There's mold prevention, ergonomics, and indoor plants. And then within those, there are even more aspects that are broken down, and each of those might be broken down into a separate point each. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of the detail which the tool goes into. From a Green Star perspective, you don't have to target everything. That's how Green Star works. You target the ones that you want to, but from an interiors perspective and a new build perspective, you will have to target from a 4 to a 6 stars, what we call the ratings, and so you have to target 4-star is a set amount of points, and you have to target that amount of points out of 100, and a 6-star is 75 points. So if you want to target a 6-star, you'll have to target 75 of the points in order to get your 6-star rating. And so you will decide which of the 75 points out of 100 you want to target. That is completely up to you as a project team as to which ones you want to target. But these are the type of things that are considered to make your people comfortable and to make your people experience the space better. What we always try to do from a Green Star perspective is also ensure that the standards are better than the SAN standards are better than legislation. So they are stretch targets. They're not only legislation. So I also mentioned, oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong way. I mentioned that the one credit here, this exposure to air pollutants, you can see here it's got paint, adhesive, sealants, carpets, flooring, and engineered woods. Those can potentially have what we call volatile organic compounds. And so what we're hoping to reduce in our Green Start tools is those exposure to those volatile organic compounds that can trigger health issues, nausea, headaches, and respiratory problems. So we ask that those get cut down or are below a certain parts per million, and so that also helps with the indoor air quality and with people's lungs and health in general, as well as which was also mentioned in the previous slide, that biological contaminants, molds and fungi are also some things which are obviously bad for asthma risks and that type of thing, and that there are precautionary measures put in place so that those aren't in place within your building. Something that's definitely come into the play a lot more since COVID as well is mental health. And there are certain aspects that can help with mental health, and there are studies which have gone into this. And as mentioned before, lighting, access to nature, and those daylight and views are things that are proven to actually help with mental health. So those are type of things that we encourage people to consider when they are thinking about their spaces and how they link with nature and how they link with the environment, and how people can feel even what time of day it is, and be able to read those type of things to help with their mental health. The next thing I want to just emphasize is this is our energy category in interiors. It's worth 14 points. It is quite substantially less, but there are things like considering what you do, and I'm looking here at the right hand side more than anything else, what you do with your artificial light, what you do with your lighting controls, and if you are specifying things that are energy efficient equipment. So that might be something like your Energy Star equipment. I'm sure you've seen if you go and buy yourself a fridge at home, you see a little line diagram that has from an A to an F. And if you choose something that is closer to the A line, that is going to mean that you are potentially going to be saving energy compared to an F Energy Star, which is going to use more energy for you. So we in the part C, we would say go for energy efficient equipment, and then you'll score more highly in this energy section. We're also saying consider your plug loads and your equipment control. What are you doing with your HVAC, with your air conditioning? And we have a few options as to how you can measure that, and then you can either do it through a deemed to satisfy route, or you can do it through an energy modeling route. So, and it's very similar in the water. So water's for 8 points, and it's the same type of thing. We want you to consider what type of fittings you're putting in, what type of things you are specifying for your laundries and kitchens, if you're doing pools and irrigation and heating, if there are any reclaimed or heat rejection things, and as well as if there are any reclaimed and recycled water, how you are incorporating that into your water usage. For both energy and water, we promote sub-metering, which is this what we call Watt 2, energy Energy 2 and water 2. We promote sub-metering for the main reason that you then know what is going on if anything is going wrong. The big thing, and this is the biggest point score in Green Star, 30 points goes towards your material. And that is for what you specify within your fit out. So you use a lot of calculators in here, but it's for whatever you put within your space. And we use 2 what we call compliance paths. So you get the most points for using a third-party system or an eco-label. So we are really trying to promote eco-labeling systems within South Africa. And then you get points for reusing furniture, for leased products, take-back schemes, long-term warranties, or designing for disassembly, or for reused, recycled, and certified content, or for a product that is manufactured in an ISO 14001 certified product facility. So we've tried to give certain preferences, certain furniture manufacturers, and certain things that give you options, get more points within your product specifications. But yeah, so it's deciding on certain choices and seeing. Some of it is a balancing act, and seeing how your furniture preferences, sorry, not only furniture preferences, just choices in generally on your finishes, or work out within your interior fit out. Moving on too fast. Moving on to green buildings and their progression, there are kind of 3 aspects I just want to touch on. And the first aspect is why we do green. Now, this is my most personal slide, and this is why I do green. So on the left-hand side are the same 2 little people. On the top slide is my nephew and niece, top left-hand side, and the bottom left-hand side is my nephew and niece again. I actually did a talk for you guys, I think it was about 6 years ago, and used the top left-hand slide of my nephew and niece at that age. And then the bottom left-hand slide is my nephew and niece a few weekends ago. So it's quite personal to me that they've all grown up now. But the reason I do green is for people. And it is for the people in my life to be able to be around and to have space, and to have space that works for them. And then I do green because I do enjoy the environment that I live in. And so the right-hand side is some of the places that I run in Cape Town and that I enjoy. And I do believe that the choices and the decisions that we make do make an impact. And so that's why I do green. That's why I try to make the decisions. It is for the people in my life and other people, and it is for the environment which I want to be able to be around for a long time. And I just kind of put it forward to you guys. If you want to get involved with green and sustainable, and if you are involved with green and sustainable things, to think back. Why did you start? Why do you want to start? And what kind of road you want to go onto? So green and what its journey is. I mentioned earlier that the Green Building Council has net zero tools, and this is really where a lot of the stuff is going to now. And net zero pretty much it means that everything from a net zero perspective is measured in what we call carbon. and carbon is to take everything back to the same metric and track it all in the same way. So it's measuring apples with apples and not changing metrics. Okay, so what we're saying is that from a net zero perspective, we're saying net zero carbon is what we are trying to push people towards. And the reason why we are emphasizing this, and we got on board with the World Green Building Council for this, is that after one of the COPs, and after trying to ensure that we didn't go up the 1.5 degrees, there needed to be a dramatic change as far as how we could work together to bring down the emissions that buildings were putting out. So this is the principle that the World Green Building put forward, and which we have then supported, and that's where we started designing our net zero tools. The gist of it is, and the aim is that by 2030, find my mouse again. So here, 2030, all new buildings at this point, the aim was that all new buildings must operate at net zero carbon. So net zero carbon means that annually, the operational net zero emissions should be zero. Okay, now that's very ambitious. It's what, 6.5 years away, that all new buildings should be net zero carbon in based on an operational annual yearly metered data. It's very ambitious, but we have to stick a stake in the ground and say something. and without setting ambitious goals, I don't think we'll get there at all. Then there's this other pig in the sand, which is this one here. 2050, 100% of buildings. Now this is also including existing buildings. By 2050, must operate at net zero carbon. So that was a stake in the sand in March 2018. That has since been updated, and this is the updated life carbon vision. Now this is slightly different, and these are kind of where the trends are going as far as buildings are concerned. So what we have on the left-hand side here is net zero operational carbon, which goes to a building's life once it's been built. So you get that just measuring its carbon while the building is in operation is the one aspect. This other aspect here is a net zero embodied carbon. So embodied carbon versus operational carbon are different. And that's where people are heading to even more now. So since 2018 to 2023, people are now stretching themselves even further and saying, we now need to include embodied carbon. And I'm going to go into embodied carbon. So embodied carbon, here at the top, embodied carbon are the carbon emissions associated with materials and construction process throughout the whole life cycle of the building and its infrastructure. So what I want to emphasize here is more and more that people are now saying we need to take into account everything from what it takes to produce the entire building, from the supplying of the raw materials to the transport, to the manufacturing, to the transport, to the construction, to creating the building, to its whole operational life cycle, to its end of life and to disposing of it. We need to take into account its whole embodied carbon in order to understand what impact buildings actually have for their entire life cycle. It's ambitious, but it's something that the built environment is taking into consideration. And what I want to emphasize here too is that the choices we make in finishes makes a massive difference. This slide just emphasizes the yellow bits here. This is just different building types. We've got offices, we've got residential, we've got school. This is built according, this line here is built according to normal, equivalent would be SAN standards. You can see that this yellow bit is how much operational energy takes up, and this pink bit is products and materials. If you then go in this line is energy efficiency, the next biggest bit by far is material. So again, it goes back to what are we choosing to specify and put in our buildings makes a massive difference. If we've decided to go energy efficient, our next big bit is what are we choosing to put in a specification. This is a World Green Building Council Health and Wellbeing Framework, which reiterates which we have in the Green Star manual. Things like protect and improve health, indoor air quality, prioritize the buildings. And it's the same type of thing, but kind of put in a different format and identified as important things to consider, as well as who are the important, which people across the building's life cycle need to be taken into consideration. And finally, I just wanted to reinforce what we started with. In interiors, what do we need to consider? Who are we able to say that we can support and the well-being of people? Are we considering where the product and where everything is made from and where the components, is it durable? Are there harmful chemicals involved? And what is the impact of that in the entire life cycle of the building as a whole, whether it's embodied carbon or whether it's operational carbon? So all these questions kind of pop up along the way in the whole life cycle of a building and of the fit out that we're involved in. So I've got just 3 little considerations. If you are interested in being involved with the Green Building Council or to know more about the interiors tool, we do have a training course specifically on interiors. So if you're interested, get hold of me. If you are interested in signing up for membership, we've got a company membership or an individual can become a member. And if you're interested in our convention, we've got it coming up in Cape Town, 15th to 17th of November. Please, it's an amazing convention, normally with absolutely dynamic speakers. So consider asking us for more information. And that's it from me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm going to allow a quick answering session, a question and answering session. If there are anybody who wants to ask specific questions to Jenny, can you just raise your hand, please? Okay, let's carry on with the second part of the webinar. The second part of the webinar will be presented by Melanie. Melanie is from Chapters Interiors. We have used Melanie in several presentations in the past. She's almost part of the Italtile family. Melanie is also the owner of Chapters Interiors, and she presents courses in interior design. She, for instance, is responsible for training all the sales consultants in Italtile in basic interior design principles. Melanie, I'm going to hand over to you immediately, so please carry on with your presentation.
Thank you, Marius. Nicole, can you see my presentation and hear me?
I can, thank you, Mel.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to Italtile for this opportunity again to have a chat to everyone about things that are very close to my heart, anything related to design. What I wanted to talk about, so what I'm going to be talking about tonight, this afternoon, is talking about the trends around sustainability and what's happening in that space. But before I start with what the actual trends are, I wanted to talk about how trends actually work. Sorry, let me see if I can get, oh, there we go. So just for everybody's information, so things, not everything is a trend when it comes into the market. So you'll start, like you can see on the left-hand side, this is something that comes comes in and out of the market very quickly. And the example that I often use for fads is, if you remember the fidget spinners that all the kids were using a couple of years ago, that is a fad. It comes in and out very quickly and it's gone and it's replaced by something else. Then trends tend to move along the spectrum and they become a micro trend. It lasts for about 3 to 5 years, happens in a specific part of the population, sort of an age group or a certain geographic area. You then get them moving on to macro trends. So this is when a trend is pervasive and it's persistent and it starts growing at a global level. And then from there, a trend may sometimes become a mega trend. And this is when it's global, it's sustained, it lasts for a very long time, and it has economic forces of development that impact business, economy, society, cultures, the way we live, the way we think, the way we do business. And not all trends move from a fad to a mega trend. But sustainability is a very interesting case study in how it's developed from, it was quite in the very, very old days. It was quite a fad to, grow your own veggies or change all your light bulbs. But as we have grown and as we've become more aware and as we've become more educated, so sustainability is becoming a mega trend, and it's becoming a way of life which is going to be necessary for all of us on the planet. The other thing I wanted to talk about is what drives trends or what influences trends. And there's lots of things that influence the time and place of trends. So the age or the time period, what's on trend now is very different to what was in trend 20 years ago. Geographic location, so what's trendy in Joburg might not be trendy in Cape Town, or what's trendy in London might not be trendy in South Africa. Access to the internet will drive popularity of trends. Technology, and we're going to talk about technology tonight. Fashion has a very big influence around trends, and I'm going to talk about a couple of interior materials that are in use at the moment that started in the fashion industry and are moving into interior spaces. The Industrial Revolution had a big influence on trend. Politics, war, we're seeing that. I'm going to mention that later on when we talk about the war in Ukraine. Economics, education, climate change, a big one, artists, and then, of course, COVID-19. And we are not even beginning to see the end of the impact COVID-19 had on our interior spaces in terms of health and well-being, as Jenny mentioned in the last presentation. So as I said, sustainability is this big global megatrend that's shaping our way of life. And flexibility is going to be the key to the changing world of interior design. And we're having to change very quickly as the world around us is changing, because we need long-term and sustainable solutions. And we're needing to be creative and innovative in terms of those new solutions. So as Jenny said, one of the biggest goals of sustainability is zero net buildings, where the structure generates as much energy as it consumes through its renewable sources, resulting in that net zero energy balance. And while a net zero project may sometimes feel out of reach or unattainable for a lot of us, depending on the scale of the project that you work on, there are a number of smaller but still significant ways to be sustainable in this industry. And we're going to look at those in terms of some of them are trends at the moment, some of them are becoming a necessity. And one of the big trends is circular thinking. So companies in the industry, in the interiors and the built industry, are having over the last couple of years, for very many reasons, having to contend with raw material shortages more and more often, either a shortage or a logistics in terms of getting our hands on those raw materials. Wood was one of them a couple of years ago. Cement is a big issue at the moment. And some of these shortages are from overconsumption, of course, but some are from things like the war in Ukraine. We've all felt in the built industry, we've all felt the impact on global supply of certain materials from that. And we're going to run out of resources to consume. And as a result, we're rethinking today's material resources and our recycling processes and working to optimize the use and lifespan of what is available to us. So, for example, recycled or bio-based materials are now alternatives to plastic in furniture. And certain parts like the casters or the wheels on furniture are now being produced using plastic waste recovered from the ocean, recycled fishing nets. There's been a bit of creativity and innovation required to get to this stage. And this image that you can see on the screen is in front of you. This is a outdoor furniture range designed by a company called, I hope I'm saying correctly, Now, which is an urban equipment company in Santiago de Chile. But they've relooked the circular economy and where they can reuse and recycle and what resources are available to us and reuse those things into something that we can use in our built and our interior environment today. Then the other one that's quite interesting is we're seeing the same thinking, the same innovation around plastics in the tile industry. And I've been waiting for this to happen. So I was delighted to see this pop up in my research so that I was able to include it, is we're starting to see eco-friendly tiles being developed. And these are also made from plastic. And as you can see, they're mimicking a terrazzo, the very popular terrazzo pattern. And this is made from recycled plastic. And based on the sales figures, designers are loving it at the moment. Then the next innovation around technology is 3D printing. So 3D printing, has come a very long way since it was first invented, and it cemented its place in the design industry and the interior design industry as a technique that's innovative, it's efficient, and it can be very economical. So Johannes Steinbauer office, they created these 3D printed chairs without any form of springs, foam, or fabric. The chair has a rigid printed structure created by 3D printing rather than the usual frames or racks that we are using for building furniture. And the chair is pretty easy to assemble and disassemble. And once it's surpassed its life cycle, you can dispose of the different parts and have them recycled for its next role in the circular economy. And again, this is translating over into the tile environment. And I had to include this image because this is a very interesting project where these are 3D printed terracotta tiles. And these, you can see it's got a very unusual pattern on it. And the reason for these tiles is they are being used to regenerate coral reefs. You can actually see now the pattern on it, why it makes sense for the coral reefs. But they are 3D printing these to assist nature to undo the damage that we've done. And the same thinking is now transferring itself into the built environment. And we are 3D printing tiles. So this is a tunnel. It's in a residential apartment building in The Hague in the Netherlands. And those blue tiles, they're actually inspired by the Dutch Delft pattern. If you know the pattern, it's got a very particular blue to it. And these tiles were 3D printed specifically for this project. And then to take it one step further is the designers used an algorithm. They used technology to create the pattern, to come up with the pattern, to give it this very sort of organic biophilic type of natural design. So we're going to start seeing 3D printed tiles coming into our living spaces more and more as time goes on. Then moving on to the next trend, which is smart homes. So technology is a very active part of our daily lives. And that's why it's not surprising that home automation is positioned as a very strong sustainability trend. So home automation, it's not just for the wealthy and the fancy and luxury, but it's starting to become about convenience, comfort, and security of our spaces, but also the considerable reduction in the energy use of our appliances, such as washing machines or air conditioning systems, our fridges. So with smart thermostats, we can control the temperature of our home remotely when we're away or when we're on our way home from the office. And through that, we can reduce our energy consumption. So smart lighting systems can also be controlled remotely. I don't need to leave lights on all day. If I know I'm coming home in the dark, I can turn them off when they're not in use and use my cell phone while I'm on my way home and turn those lights on. So we're going to be seeing a lot more accessibility to smart home solutions in the coming future. Then going on to a topic that Jenny touched on is the interior materials and what's happening in that space. So products designed for health and good air quality. There's been a lot of work and demand for healthy and hygienic living and working environments over the last couple of years. Definitely driven by COVID-19, but there's been a lot of development in that space prior to that as well. And some of the developments in this space are really clever and innovative. So, for example, there's been a lot of work around innovative textiles for upholstered furniture. So they are dirt resistant. They can be cleaned without using any chemicals, any harsh chemicals, or without leaving any residue. So quite spill resistant. And so it sounds great from a keeping your home beautiful point of view, but there's also a sustainability benefit to that as well. Is I'm not using harsh chemicals when I'm cleaning the surfaces in my home, which may affect a child with asthma or whatever the case may be. And there's been a lot of development in this space. You're getting a lot of performance fabrics coming out in the market. One of the other ones that became very popular over COVID was surfaces that kill bacteria, such as copper and brass. And there was a very interesting stat. I haven't included it for you in this one, but there's a very interesting stat on the leaps and bounds that brass and copper finishes, particularly things like doorknobs, grew by during COVID because they are self-cleaning and antibacterial. And a lot of people are now investing in them, but knowing that they are antibacterial and anti-germ. So why aren't all our surfaces covered in copper? Handleless furniture fronts, again, was very popular, and as a result of COVID, went through a massive growth. These are push-to-open mechanisms. They make opening and closing drawers and doors or flaps much easier, and we don't have to touch them. You know, you can either touch them with an elbow or gently with a knee. And speaking of no-touch surfaces, Italtile also has kept this in mind when developing their mirror ranges. And this is Italtile's what you see on the screen in front of you is Italtile's Affirmations EcoChic mirrors, which is done with a sustainable design and a manufacturing process that's very energy efficient. And a lot of these mirrors are touch-free mirrors. So instead of having to touch the surface, during COVID, the technology came around where I can turn the mirror light on and off without having to touch it. Also, when it comes to interior surfaces, lighting can play a very active role in health protection. So UV LEDs are being used to sterilize surfaces when light is shone directly onto them. And you are getting all sorts of interior devices now to sterilize surfaces, whether it be at a bathroom, a textile, or your kitchen counters, or a common area in a commercial environment with UV lights. In Japan, they have a very interesting thing in their public bathrooms. There's a little slot next to your basin or your sink where you wash your hands in the public loos, and you pop your cell phone into it, and a UV light scans your phone, disinfects it, and gives your phone back to you, thankfully, at the end. And also by, as Jenny mentioned, low VOC products. So by choosing products and materials that emit fewer VOCs or volatile organic compounds, and prioritizing indoor air quality, we're creating safe spaces for our users. So all of these things are going to be becoming more and more popular and more trendy to in the design industry. So people are starting not only to boast about their latest tile that they've got in their guest loo, but also we've got a UV light disinfectant. The things that we're boasting about are becoming slightly different in our living spaces. And in terms of internal finishes that are sustainable. This is an area very much where I have to highlight Italtile's work. They really are doing the work around partnering with businesses that have sustainability and the end user's health and well-being in mind. And I've included some of the logos of the products stocked by Italtile that actually have a sustainability program or sustainability philosophies that they live by. So I do encourage you the next time you are in one of their showrooms to have a look at these products and talk to the Italtile teams around their sustainability partners. Then in terms of the next trend is natural and sustainable materials, again, an interior finish. So we're focusing a lot on the materials we use in our places that we live, work, and play in. So materials like bamboo, cork, and hemp, they've been around for a while, but they're starting to get quite refined. And they're not only eco-friendly, but these days they're starting to become a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than they used to be. And if you look at the picture on the screen in front of you, that is actually cork tiling that is now on the market. Comes in a beautiful, almost black tile as well. So they've refined the process around the way that they are producing cork tiles. Interestingly, while we're talking about natural and sustainable materials, there's been a big uptick in interest in vintage textiles and fabrics that are produced sustainably and with a slow ethos, moving away from that mass production and that fast fashion. And there are a couple of textile companies in South Africa that are really living and breathing this thinking. They're going back to very much the old mill type of textile production. But back to cork, it's playing this massive role in this growing natural and sustainability trend. And it's appearing in furniture, like you can see in this beautiful furniture on the screen in front of you. I've got wall coverings in there as well. And also, surprisingly, it's coming through in spaces like kitchens and bathrooms. And here it is in the kitchen as well. So you can have the option I had earlier on of this beautiful plank look, or the more solid look. It is a very good acoustic material, and for anybody who spends a lot of time standing, so if you're a chef or spend a lot of time in your kitchen, it's actually one of the most comfortable things for you to stand on because it's a very forgiving material. So it's sustainable and it brings great warmth and texture, but it's ideal for insulating. And bathrooms, as I mentioned, is one of the unusual places that it's starting to appear. But have a look here. Have a look at these basin units in a bathroom. So the base is made from beautiful cork, bringing a little bit of warmth and texture in. And then have a look at these beautiful basins done in the other trend that's happening at the moment, which is the dual colors. So cork is our friend at the moment. One of the other big trends is carbon footprint reduction and lifestyle and life cycle assessment. So prioritizing low carbon materials and sustainable construction methods are crucial in reducing a building's energy consumption. And sometimes if you fitting a building with sustainability practices, it can be quite challenging. But one of the ways that this is trending at the moment is with modular and prefabricated construction methods. And it started pre-COVID. It became extremely popular during COVID when they were building prefabricated and modular doctors' rooms and hospitals. I did a talk recently on the hospital that they built that housed something ridiculous like 20,000 beds in China that they built in literally a week. I'm not even exaggerating. But these building methods are gaining traction for minimizing waste, reducing your construction time, and improving overall sustainability. Because what they do is they go out, they check the site, they prep the site, your unit gets built off site, and either comes in parts or in a whole on a truck, and then literally just gets dropped onto the prepped site. And one of the benefits, so there's a company, very interesting company in South Africa who's doing this. They started off as a furniture company, and they've turned into this amazing business where they are doing this for Mangwanani spas and game lodges and home offices and all sorts of interesting prefabricated units. And one of the benefits of this kind of construction is you're able to position the building to ensure you're optimizing its natural surroundings. So where the trees are, the airflow, how the landscape, you're not doing a lot of damage to the landscape because you're literally just prepping the footprint. You're not having to bring massive construction vehicles in. You're able to track the trajectory of the sun and position the building perfectly for those kind of considerations. Carrying on from that a carbon footprint reduction is the trend around adaptive reuse and upcycling. So this has been around for a while, where we take older spaces, for example, downtown Joburg, Braamfontein was very good at this for a while. We take old factories, we turn them into very funky apartments or new office spaces, and we give them a new life. So that's been happening for a while, but one of the big trends in this space is container buildings. And this started off as sort of a coffee shop on the side of the road, and it's starting to become more and more popular. Interestingly enough, one of the countries that is absolutely flying with this trend around sustainability is Mexico. But there's this big movement towards adaptive reuse and upcycling of container buildings to create living environments. And this is, I've taken a screenshot for you of a business research report. This is the front page where they did a research report on the container homes market. And I've blown up for you what they're saying at the bottom there so we can read it better. So by the end of 2031, which is what, 8 years, it's anticipated that the global market for container homes will be worth more than 88 billion US dollars. So if there is a business that you want to be in at the moment, it is the sourcing and supply of containers for new developments or for upcycling in terms of spaces to live, work, and play in. Then the next interesting one that I've got for you is new tactile materials. So a wide range of new materials is being explored around the globe by those very innovative and sustainability-driven minds. And mushrooms is one of the big materials out at the moment, and it's truly having a moment in 2023. So mushroom leather, you can see it there on your left-hand side. It's a sustainable and ethical alternative to animal leather, and it's being selected as the material of choice for furniture. I've found a couple of companies online who are already upholstering furniture in this, and they are literally sold out of the range that is done in mushroom leather. That's how popular it is. And this has been developed by a company called Milo, and they developed this leather from mycelium, which is the root-like system from the mushrooms, and they produce mushroom leather in less than 2 weeks in vertical farming facilities that are powered by renewable electricity. And if you think about the global impact of beef farming, where we get our leather supplies from, and the alternative where this is vertical and it's turning around in 2 weeks, it makes financial and economical sense. And if you need an extra bit of information to believe in mushroom leather, Stella McCartney has just released a mushroom leather handbag that sells for $10,000 a piece. Okay, and then the other one that's quite interesting, this one's been around for a while, a little bit longer than the mushroom leather, is a leather called Pinatex. And Pinatex comes from the top of a pineapple. You'll see the pineapple in the middle there. And usually we eat the fleshy part of the pineapple and we throw away the top. And some clever people had a look at this and thought, well, what can we do with that top? And through a long process, they've been doing it for quite a while. They've developed this leather that's used in fashion from the waste products of pineapples. And you can see it being used in shoes there. And they're now looking at using it in interior spaces as well. So there's 2 new interior finish options for you using waste and growing vertically. And then the next trend I've got for you is sustainable furniture. So wood does play a major role in sustainability, especially in lightweight design and furniture construction. So manufacturers of chipboard became very innovative out of necessity a little while ago. And what they did was they took wood mixtures from sustainable wood sources and worked with formaldehyde-free glues to create a certain type of lightweight wood that bends. Okay, so it contributes to a healthier indoor air environment if it doesn't have any damaging glues in it. So the wood is lightweight, it can be shaped, and it's resource efficient in terms of the furniture that you can create out of it. And the chair that's on the screen in front of you, this is actually it being packed and stacked here. So here it is in an interior environment. It's called the 4 p.m. chaise lounge chair. And it's defined by these very sort of flat and curved features. And it's designed to create comfort out of which essentially is quite a hard material, wood. And the only upholstered component of this chair is that leather headrest, and it could be a mushroom leather or Pinatex leather. And that is not attached with glues. It's actually balanced on top of the backrest with a steel weight to ensure that there are fewer materials and fewer chemicals coming off into the interior environment. And then the one that we all know that we teach quite a lot and we talk about quite a lot is the big, massive mega trend that is biophilic design. And biophilic design started out as a fad. It's one of those ones that's grown along the spectrum of trends. It started out as a fad where we would put a poor little pot plant in our reception areas, and it's grown over time to this mega trend, so much so that it's become its own interior design style and category. So it's the staple of a sustainable architecture, and it creates that strong connection between humans and nature within the built environment, whether it's commercial, residential, retail. And as we know, this design incorporates natural elements such as your plants, your water features, and natural light to create spaces that enhance well-being and productivity in the users. So we're seeing interiors that are mimicking the organic nature of things, such as lines and curved shapes, which I'm going to talk about shortly, and colors that are taking us back to earth. So the earthy tones and the combination of warm and cool colors together. So the sub-trend inside biophilic design is organic shapes. So organic shapes have been trending for the last year in all spaces interior. And, for a long time, angular shapes and strict straight lines were very much the hallmark of luxury design spaces. Now, what's happening is designs are leaning towards furniture and interior elements that embrace more softer lines, more natural lines. And this is thanks to the popularity of biophilic design. So organic shapes are a pushback against that overly manufactured design of yesteryear, bringing that sense of serenity and natural fluidity to interior spaces. So the latest wave of curves that we're going to be seeing is in sort of serpentine sofa shapes and curvaceous accent chairs, and also in our architectural elements, so arches, our windows, doors, mirrors, and our hallways. We're seeing a lot of curvy shapes happening at the moment, and it's being driven very specifically by biophilic design. And the other sub-trend sitting inside biophilic design is our warm and cool tones. And for those of you who were in our webinar the last time I spoke about this trend of where we are combining warm and cool tones in the same space together. It wasn't very popular for quite a while, and now we're starting to do it. And the reason for that is because if you think about nature, there are constantly warm and cool tones outside. So there's bright yellows with cool blues. There's deep reds of sand with, the deep dark blues of the sky. So we are starting to combine our cooler and our warmer tones, like our blues, our purples, and our greens, together in spaces, and we're adding a touch of elegance and glamour to our spaces by mimicking what nature is doing around us. And here you can see it in a very simple way where we've incorporated the warm tones of wood with the cool tones of sky blue on finishes. And then one of the last ones is statement stone as a sub-trend in biophilic design. So it's very much a biophilic design statement at the moment to have these sculptural tables or dramatic countertops or beautiful large format backsplashes or walls like you can see in this bathroom made from unconventional stones, from basalt to travertine or soapstone. These colorful stones are a bolder design choice and a beautiful way for us to bring that outdoors into our living spaces to create that biophilic effect. So even for more traditional materials like marble, there's been a shift away from your more classic black and white looks, and people are leaning towards these statement stones with this dramatic veining and unique color patterns. And then one of the last things I wanted to touch on around sustainability is an interior style that is starting to grow out of sustainability. And it's been around in a couple of different forms, hidden in other things for a while. So hygge, the Swedish concept of hygge, was very much driven by this. I'm going to mention one that's shortly that's coming on the coattails. But warm and minimalist spaces is very much coming on board as an interior style in itself. So this is warm, earthy tones, very much natural materials, cozy organic textures, all things that are biophilic in nature. So it's a new take on minimalism that instantly warms any space, making it comfortable and welcoming without losing that simplicity that makes minimalism what it is. So its key features are things like warm neutrals you can see in this space, organic shapes, so the curves that I spoke about earlier, layered textures because nature is full of textures and they're all over the place, lots of natural elements like grasses or leaf patterns, and simple, purposeful spaces. So minimalism, and in particularly warm minimalism, is almost the counterswing to the consumerism we've had of past decades. So using the idea of only the essentials to create our space. And in this way, warm minimalism design is leading the way in providing us with peace and comfort and tranquility in a sustainable way. And one of the other big design styles that's very much on the chit-chat wires of the global design industry at the moment is Japandi. And have a look at where Japandi is coming from. It's coming from warm minimalism combining with biophilic design. And this is starting to become a very powerful trend around the globe at the moment. So that is all I have for you this evening. I hope I inspired you to implement some of those trends in your interior spaces. And thank you very much to Italtile for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Melanie. If there are any questions, please put up your hand so that we can address those questions. You can also, like I said in the beginning, you can also send an email directly to Nicole and she will direct it to the relevant people to get back to you. Thank you very much for attending. Nicole, do you see any hands?
No hands, Marius, just a lot of thank yous. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Like I said, any questions, just forward a mail to Nicole. Thank you very much for attending this afternoon.